I'd like to call the meeting to order. This is the Litchfield Budget Committee meeting for December 14th. So if we could start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. We have Dennis, who's not able to be with us tonight. Bob had an unexpected work obligation. We do have a vacancy, and Jen Bork is running late. She also had a work obligation, and she is on her way as we speak. So there are 5 of us right now. We have an opportunity now for a public input, if there's any public input. Nope. Don't pick me. Alrighty. I'm going to welcome our 2 people in the audience. Review and revisions to the agenda. So I did change under town review. We had put, I had initially had final voting, but we kind of did that. So this is just an update on the January 4th meeting that we decided to hold at our last session. And then I changed just under the budget review. It's I had initially had updates, and basically that's going to be a review of revenues that I did send out earlier today. So those are the only changes that I have. Member input, miscellaneous business. Couple of things. I noticed I've been watching some town meetings, and especially in this room where it's kind of echoey and crackly and stuff, I want to make sure that we don't talk over each other, because it just adds to kind of the background noise. And we're a small group tonight, so we probably won't have to worry about that as much as when we had a room full of people, but I just thought I would mention that. Also, we had some correspondence, which of course it comes a little later, just to call out, we had some correspondence from Chris Vescucci, and it referred to the December 6th school board meeting. I forwarded it all to all of you because you didn't have everybody's email address. And I don't, and so I watched the meeting, and I didn't notice anything that I felt was out of line in terms of comments. I think in any discussion of an important topic, you're going to have all kinds of brainstorming and thoughts and outside-of-the-box thinking and comments and what-ifs, and I think that's just part of regular, debate and discussion. One thing that I did that caught my attention, and I don't remember the exact wording because I don't have the letter in front of me, was a concern about deliberative session. I feel very strongly, and I've encouraged people in the past to come to deliberative session. For 20 years, I've encouraged people, since deliberative session came into being, which was around 1999, encourage people to come, because that is the one opportunity that people have to actually change things. Not just vote yay or nay, up or down, and it is what it is. That's the opportunity people have to come and actually change things. And I feel that's very, very important, and I would hate to discourage anybody from coming to deliberative session and feeling like they shouldn't or couldn't initiate a vote on any matter that changes anything. So that was the one point I feel very strongly. There was a concern about, loading deliberative session or whatever the comment was. Everybody come. Everybody come. I don't care who you are, if you're a registered voter, come to deliberative session. That is the one time you can affect change. You can come and talk to us, you can come and give your input, but that's the one time you can actually vote to change things. So I feel very strongly that we should not be discouraging people from coming to deliberative session to make changes. The other comment that was made in the meeting was that it was a comment about the 2005 kindergarten vote. And the comment was made that I was chair at the time, which I was, of the school board, and that I should have had more input into this discussion at the budget committee level. Which was kind of interesting because I looked at the 2005 warrant article, and my recollection of that article was that it was a placeholder to help us keep state funding, because otherwise it would vanish and we would never be able to use that money. However, as time goes by, of course, I now read it with fresh eyes, and I honestly can't tell you the legal ramifications of the passage of that warrant article. I don't know whether it means to implement it and forever. I don't know if it meant that one thing that I thought, which was to provide a stopgap so we could hold on to those funds. I don't know. And everybody has an opinion on that. So what I've asked is New Hampshire Municipal Association actually does not do school issues. So I've asked the superintendent to contact school district legal counsel and have them look at this article and give us an opinion, because I honestly can't tell you whether this holds us to kindergarten or doesn't, or how to interpret it now, 12 years later. So that obviously just happened today, so I don't anticipate we will have a response until, well, as soon as we get a response, I will forward it around, but I think we'll have it before January 4th. But with the coming holiday season, I don't know how soon we'll get it. And we have a...
Just for the record, we did send that request off to legal counsel this afternoon, along with the data, including the warrant article, and asked that the council give us a response as quickly as possible. However, this time of the year, even though it is the holiday season, there's an awful lot of negotiations and things like that going on. So we're hopeful, as soon as we get that, we'll forward it to the chair, and then the chair can distribute it as she sees fit.
Yeah, because that had not occurred to me, so let's not have questions about it, let's get answers. So, that is my input, miscellaneous business. If anybody else has any comments or anything else they want to bring up. All right, review and acceptance of minutes. We did have a set of minutes from November 30th. They were available a week ago on the shared site. However, I did not realize till tonight, I did not forward, everybody has access to that, but I usually forward just as a reminder, by the way, the minutes are there. I did not do that. So if people did not have an opportunity to look at the minutes, then I would be happy to hold off on those. So it's up to, the four of you.
Yeah, I read them. I don't know if anybody else did, so.
I read.
Okay. So, John, were you here for
I
this?
wasn't here, I'll abstain, but...
So you would abstain anyway. So, yeah, and I read them, so if we want to...
I make a motion to approve them as written.
Second.
It's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain?
Abstain.
So it's 4-0-1. All right, correspondence. As I said, we did get, I forwarded a message we had from Chris Pascucci to the rest of the committee. We had revenue information that came this week, and I think that's all. And I think there were actually a couple announcements from the town, but you know what, when we get to town, I'll let you
Sure.
mention a couple of town issues. All right, so, which brings us to the town. Okay, John.
We're going to tell you to look them all up, but I think in short, the meeting that was agreed to for January 4th has been, the resources we need are going to be here, and it's been set up. I did notify cable, and I know there was some dialogue back and forth, so they'll set the auditorium up. I know Michelle already booked that, so we're good to go for that. Obviously, the consulting firm that's doing the fire department build-off for us was in just last week, or our meeting on Monday, gave us sort of a review of where we're at, and we're ready for that meeting, so we're in a good spot. They know that they're hoping to have pricing and stuff for the 4th meeting so that we can start talking about what it actually would cost.
Hoping to have?
No, they will, I'm sure. I'm
Because
trying-
I can guarantee you how I'm going to vote if there is no numbers.
There'll be numbers before deliberative, let's put it that way. But we have to go for the bond hearing has to, we have to have all that stuff in place too, so we're working as fast as we can to get that done. Other than that, just one sort of positive note, we did hire our bookkeeper. She starts on Monday. She comes with a lot of good background in accounting and municipal planning, so we're in good shape. The rest of the town's been doing fine. Winter's here, though.
Yes, it is.
We've already had our challenges, so it's all good.
2 storms in a couple of days.
Yep, so that's it for me.
Okay. Any questions? All right, moving on then to school district budget review. So we did get some revenue information forwarded to us. Do you want to run through the scenarios, Cory?
Which on the tax rate?
Yeah.
We had, and I think between our conversation today, or our emails back and forth, I had done 2 scenarios for the tax rate calculation. One was based on the 2017 known assessed valuation, and then the second one was based on the estimate for next year's for 2018's. And that was the one that we were able to reconcile to each other. So that would be scenario 2 that I had provided. There was also, I had not put that revised valuation into the default tax rate calculation, so that was corrected as well. So I think I provided that to Cindy. That should have, I believe you had sent that out as well.
I forwarded it
so
to everybody, yeah.
If anyone, I mean, it has the change in the state aid that we'll be getting that was based on the revenue projections that were received from the state in November. That is the change in the amount, about $297,000 less than, estimating $297,000 less than was received in the previous year. And it's based on projected ADM, so. And those, what else you want to review the tax rate impact information, or do you want to do that as
Yeah.
part of the warrant article?
Why don't we, because I think it's important to understand, that's true, it is, I did notice there are updated warrant article forms that do have the calculations as part of it.
Yeah.
So why don't we,
I would have done it.
The school board, do you have one? The school board at this point will be, I believe, Tina, the school board will be voting on the warrant articles at the next meeting, next Wednesday night. So the first financial warrant article, Article 1, the operating budget, we have estimated the tax impact of the operating budget to be 63 cents per thousand. Article 2 would be the warrant article for the cost associated with the implementation of full-day kindergarten. That tax impact would be 48 cents per thousand.
So what's increased in that? Because we pulled out 495, so how did it get to 520?
So there was a piece there was an update that I issued for the school board and the budget committee on November 15th, I believe, that included the revised estimate from the contractor for an additional $13,000. That brought it up to $507,241, I believe, off the top of my head. Don't quote me on it. There's also the other pieces. We were waiting on an estimate in terms of the trenching, because in order to put the modular unit, we have to dig up the utilities in that parking lot area and then repave it. So that came in for $6,500. That was added in, and then when you have any infrastructure type project, you want to be able to have a bit of a contingency, so there's a 10% of the infrastructure costs has been added into that portion of the warrant article. Of course, if that warrant article passes, we go through, do the project, any amounts not spent on the warrant article go back, so there'll be a very detailed tracking on that project. We have Article 3, which was the Special Services Coordinator position that was on there last year. The estimated tax impact for that is 10 cents per thousand. And then the final article, Article 4, to put from our unassigned fund balance, $50,000 into the building maintenance capital reserve fund that was previously established. So that would come from unassigned fund balance.
So just also on Article 1, I think it's important to note the default budget estimation is $1.15. And usually your default budget is your lower number. It's your safety net should your proposed budget not pass. This year, because of the unique set of circumstances of the declining enrollment and the ability to absorb some costs and to not have 3 staff that are not required, the default budget is significantly higher. Do we have, I'm trying to remember if I saw, do we have a breakdown of the impact of the default is significantly higher because these are things that people voted on last year. Do we have anything that tells us what last year's votes, how they've impacted this budget? In other words, so we passed 2 contracts, we passed, I forget, a couple other smaller items.
Last
March.
Last March, there was the 2 collective bargaining agreements.
Yeah.
There was the safety.
Security.
Warrant article, I think it was warrant article 5 on the ballot.
Yeah.
That was about 60, I want to say 65, yeah. So there's still pieces of that have not been completed, that are still being held. One of us being the fence that was going to go up at GMS. Of course, if you want to put a 4-room classroom modular, you don't want to put a fence up that you're going to have to move to put the modular and then put the fence back up. So we're
I was just
holding on
curious,
to
the impact of things that people supported last year and how it's impacted the default budget this year. That's not called out anywhere?
The collective bargaining agreement, I mean, with the individual contracts as they go up from year to year, so that's now salary with their steps, that'll go up within the salary and benefit lines. Trying to think.
I was just saying that
There's something I
would
could-
be useful information for when we get to the hearing to explain, because it is confusing to see the default be higher than the proposed. So I was just trying to think of how to explain to people what went into that number and why.
I can go back to my calculator and see if I can put a better explanation of certain areas together that might help to explain that. Offhand, I don't have a full thing written out on it, but it's absolutely something I could do.
Because it's pretty significant. It's, 37, 47, if it's 52 cents, a 52-cent reduction in what would have been an increase. 52 cents is pretty significant. Okay. Any comments, questions? All right, what is the pleasure of the board? Do you want to approve these tonight? Do you want to hold off?
I think we can move forward and approve them tonight.
Okay.
But people wonder why there's only like a 5% vote on it, though. Will that make it look? I mean, you're only going to pick.
Well, this is basically bringing it forward to the hearing. At the hearing, we can choose to change, revote it based on community input or not. So this is basically just is there, a recommendation or not to bring it forward to the hearing?
Want to take a 10-minute break? We can wait for Jen to get here for one more.
I think we can vote on it. I know how I'm voting.
Yeah, I mean,
I make a motion to approve the operating budget as proposed at $22,342,614.
okay, there's been a motion to recommend. To recommend Article 1.
Second.
It's been made and seconded. Any additional discussion?
I'm going to vote in favor of it, even though I think it's still way too high. We've had the discussion about special ed. I think that it's unfortunate that we have an opportunity to have reduced the budget even further, and I think it's a shame that we didn't. I will vote in favor of it, though, because a vote against it, even though I don't like it, could be construed as a support for the default budget, which I definitely don't support.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, those are in favor of recommending Article 1, the operating budget, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Okay, so 500. Article 2, kindergarten, the second wording is the wording that apparently is the wording that's going to be used minus the last sentence. So shall the Litchfield School District vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $519,732 for the purpose of funding costs associated with the implementation of full-day kindergarten at Griffin Memorial School. Impact is 48 cents.
Move to approve Article 2.
Recommend. Motion to recommend Article 2. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been made and seconded. Further discussion?
I support the idea of full-day kindergarten, but in talking to a lot of people, I think that we're really rushing into how we're funding it. I don't think there's been enough community support, conversations or discussion. There's a lot of discussion about the possibility of having charged a fee because there are other districts who do so. I think that given the wide range of private kindergartens that are in the area, we don't have a lack of opportunity. Whether this is something that should be funded by the taxpayers, I think is something that we really should question. And as a budget committee member who's looking out for taxpayers, when there's an opportunity to fund it in an alternative manner that would limit the tax impact, I feel that I have to support the further investigation of other ways of funding this, because I don't believe that going straight to the taxpayers without consulting or reviewing other options we're not ready, it's too soon.
So, if you have parents pay tuition, you still have to raise and appropriate the full amount. So this number would not change, and this warrant does not determine how, whether or not a fee will be charged, whether or not, there's more state money will be available. This is just the part that has to be raised and appropriated.
All right, well then I would not vote in favor of it unless the revenues were also adjusted to incorporate the $519,000.
Can I speak to the fact of the question of charging a fee for full-day kindergarten? We've asked legal counsel, and they've recommended that we not charge a fee because the state is required to provide an adequate education for our students. If we charge a fee for full-day kindergarten, that would insinuate that the district considers half-day adequate, and a full-day would be, I guess, complementary education. We also cannot discriminate on the basis of socioeconomic status. So if we charge for a full-day program, we are limiting the amount of people who can take part in that full-day program.
And how do other districts overcome that? Because there are districts who do charge tuition.
Yes, they do. It's also the feeling that because next year the state will be adding adequacy funding for full-day on top of what they take currently for half-day students. If we accept state aid, the legal counsel advised us that you can't do both. You can't charge a fee and collect state aid.
Double dip.
So the chances are most districts who do collect a fee, which is not, my understanding is not that that's a majority, that they would have to stop. If they wanted to collect the state aid, they would not be able to charge a fee.
But if their fee covers their costs, then they probably don't need the state aid.
Okay, so we've decided that this is the best way we can fund it. You said, when you voted to take it out of the budget, to make it a warrant article, that you were doing that so that we would put it on a warrant article, and you would support that.
I support the process of putting it on a warrant article. I don't have to actually support the warrant itself.
Superintendent?
I'm not going to jump in the middle of that. I believe what another point is that if the school district considers that full-day kindergarten is integral to the education of our children, and if we offer that as a full-day option, then we have to offer it to all children, irrespective of economic background, so that charging a fee when we consider something to be integral to the district, I believe would be in opposition to both the state standard and law. Now, is there a case on that has been tried in New Hampshire? Not that I could determine. But I do believe that if it is integral, that we should offer it without any fees attached to it, because it would be an economic sanction if we have a fee, because some parents in our community clearly can afford an additional, say, $4,000 for a full-day kindergarten. But we also have many parents that clearly can't afford a $4,000 additional cost. So therefore, we would be discriminating on basis of economic capacity against certain children. And I believe that would clearly be.
So there would be no way to put in like a free and reduced lunch waiver, like the way that they do in other aspects?
My understanding is that you cannot do that, and you can't have, well, here, let me put it this way. My understanding is that you can't create like a scholarship format where some kids would not have to pay, because again, you're discriminating against a certain group because of economic capacity. I don't know with regards to free and reduced lunch rate, but I believe that the same logic would hold true, because free and reduced lunch rate is based on the income versus poverty level of families, so that if you were to put free and reduced lunch rate as your discriminator, I believe you would be discriminating children based on economic status. Well, if you make a list up of Jimmy O'Neill is on free and reduced lunch, therefore he doesn't have to pay tuition, that's in essence saying, well, Jimmy O'Neill comes from a family that doesn't make that much money. That's discriminating against that child because of the economic income of his mother and father.
But how does Jimmy O'Neill then get free and reduced lunch? I mean, there's a form, there's an application that has to be filled out, is there not?
There's an application that is filled out and it is held very tightly, cannot be shared with very many people. In fact, the principals don't even know in their building who is getting free and reduced lunch.
So why could we not implement a similar process for tuition?
We'd have to get legal counsel, but on the letter that we got, which I would be glad to share, my understanding in reading the letter is that you cannot use economic disparity as a selecting factor. Therefore, if it's integral to the education of the kids, you have to offer it to all kids. And that's my understanding.
I would like to see that, because I don't believe that you are actually selecting. You're not saying you can't come. You're saying you can't afford the fee. There's a process by which we can help you out. That's not, that you're not selecting, you're not saying, I'm sorry, you can't attend.
But I think the minute you say it's a fee, you can't afford is a key phrase I believe you used. I believe the phrase you can't afford would then throw it into an economic discrimination. That's what I believe.
It's along the same lines of several years ago when we were trying to cut costs, charging students who participated in athletics. And you can't, because it is discriminatory against, first of all, if you run a comprehensive, at that point it was high school, if you run a comprehensive high school and that's part of comprehensive education, you can't pick out pieces of the education and charge for some and not for others.
And yet they're supposed to do. I mean, it's just our interpretation of the legal thing. I'm just saying that you can find a legal thing that says one thing. Clearly, there are other entities that have opposing legal view. And they haven't been called out on it. So therefore, there must be some basis to their argument.
I think the argument also, going back to the change in legislation this summer, where the legislation put in the Keno law, which essentially is saying that monies raised through Keno will now be used to fund full-day kindergarten, changes the groundwork, because previously only half-day kindergarten received any funding from the state, and full-day kindergarten was totally optional by the local county. So I believe the other piece that's changed is over the summer, the fact that we now receive $1,100 in this coming fiscal year for each full-day kindergarten student, and hopefully in the future we will receive full funding, changes that rule. Now, candidly, is there any legal precedent suit in the state to test that? Not that I'm aware of. I don't think the council is aware. I don't project myself as a lawyer. This is council's letter. However, council has advised us that because of that change in the law, it does change the groundwork on which you look at students and how they could go to full-day kindergarten and could be charged with it.
So we currently get $2,400 per kindergarten student. How much do we get?
Currently get, I believe,
$1,800.
$1,800 per individual half-day kindergarten student,
It's half of adequacy.
the adequacy being $3,600, because half-day, the logic was they would give us half of the adequacy. I would still go back to the question of how is $3,600 an adequate amount of money for education for a child? That's another argument for another day.
Yeah.
The Keno bill appropriated $1,100 with the idea that if enough funding is coming in from Keno, they would give us full-day $3,600 per child in the future, with a minimum amount of $1,100 per child in the future.
So my concern is we have a concern that because of declining enrollment, we're losing state funding. Here we would have, on purpose, by charging, $3,000 or $4,000 for a full-time kindergarten student, we would be refusing from the state the $2,900 that we get and perhaps the full $3,600. That doesn't seem like a good business plan, that you would be essentially refusing state aid that would cover your local costs.
Well, you could charge for that second half. You wouldn't be losing for the first half of the day.
I think that that's the full program. Per one full-time kindergarten student, you would be receiving a minimum of $2,900, potentially $3,600. Well, let's just say the $2,900. I'm not sure that that's, like I said, a good economic plan to have income coming in and refuse it and then require local parents to pay instead. I just think we were very concerned about losing $295,000. Why would we on purpose cause ourselves to lose another chunk of state aid? Welcome.
Thank you.
You stepped right in the middle of a healthy discussion.
Awesome.
Interesting discussion, because I actually never thought of because I've seen some of the comments about, charging a fee. And I never really gave it much thought that you're double dipping. If you charge and you get state aid for the same thing, you can't do that. I mean,
Well, I think it also comes down to, are we going to charge for honors classes? Are we going to charge for sports programs? Are we going to charge for the arts?
and those ideas, and that's what I said earlier, those ideas have actually been floated in the past, and we've had legal counsel tell us you can't do that.
So could we charge?
There are schools who do. Yes, there are districts that do charge.
Currently.
There are districts that charge for sports and other items too. So it all depends on what question is posed to which legal counsel.
So I'm not...
I guess I would go with our legal counsel and whatever they told us, so.
I'd be tempted to hire you.
And I'm
guys.
honestly not surprised that people have, because full-time kindergarten has not been an option at the state. Now that it's an option at the state, I would be surprised if those who do charge for full-time kindergarten can continue to do so for the very reasons we've just outlined
But
here
it's
tonight.
not mandated to offer, so I would consider that they probably would continue to charge until it's mandated, because they do not have to provide it.
Right, but then they would not be able to collect any state aid on those students. And I think those districts would have some...
So they're only providing funding for full-time students, full-time kindergartners. They're eliminating all aid for half-time kids.
If you...
No.
That is not accurate.
Right.
You still would be getting the $1,800 for your half-time students. But when that half-time student goes to a full-time student status, they would add an additional $1,100. We also believe that many students who currently partake in full-day kindergarten outside of the public schools might choose to take kindergarten in the public schools. So for each student who migrated from private to the public kindergarten, you would receive a check for $2,900.
So
They're new students to the district.
unintended consequences also, what does that do to the families in town who rely upon income associated with private kindergartens? They start closing down. There are teachers, there are people in this town who work at these private kindergartens.
Isn't there only St. Francis?
There's St. Francis, there's
Well,
Tabernacle, there's ones in
By
Londonderry.
that same
Well,
logic, what happens to
Tabernacles
our
have some.
teachers when our students leave our district? I mean, it's,
I'm just saying, unintended consequences that need to be considered.
That argument was floated when we went to half-day kindergarten, and there were some local church kindergartens that closed. But you will always have a need for people who don't have the ability to use local kindergartens.
So just to put it out there, it's not a concern that should be ignored. There are people out there who rely on that.
And if they're welcome to come vote in
And
support
I
of
was
or
going to say,
against.
we would have to hire 2 teachers and 2 paraprofessionals, so currently, I don't know how many full-time people there would be in the community, but the district would offer 4 full-time positions to the community if we were fortunate enough to get a full-time kindergarten.
Any further discussion?
I'm sorry if this has already been covered, but, so is the...
It's the second version without the last line that
Okay.
we're voting on.
So why is that last line eliminated?
Because you don't need it, probably.
Yeah, legal counsel, I guess legal counsel told the school district it's not needed, and usually they like to keep out any extraneous comments.
Okay.
I think, as a school board member, as a member of the school board, a representative of the school board, we were disappointed that those funds were removed from the budget. But we understood the will of the budget committee was to put them on as a warrant article. So here we have done that. We're giving the voters a chance to vote in favor of or against full-day kindergarten, which is what was asked by the budget committee. The job of the budget committee isn't to determine if it's necessary. It's to determine whether or not we're being fiscally responsible and we're presenting the voters with a feasible, doable tax impact.
Right, so if we're going to go back to fiscally responsible, then the concern about tuition and alternative ways of funding it without impacting taxes would be appropriate concern.
And I think we've answered that question. We've consulted legal counsel, we've looked down that road, we came to a dead end, so this is how we are trying to fund it. It's not that those avenues haven't been explored or examined carefully. This is what we have. This is where we are right now.
And I appreciate that, and I appreciate that's what your legal counsel says. I struggle with the fact that we often get legal counsel that is contradictory to things that are done elsewhere. So, but I believe in the process, so that's why I want it to go forward as a warrant article. I don't necessarily know that I'm going to vote in favor of the warrant article, but I do believe that it should be a warrant article.
The board also, and the superintendent is also aware that there will be need to educate the community about full-day kindergarten and what we perceive to be the significant advantages of full-day kindergarten. And we would be looking towards having forums, perhaps each of the schools, and having other means of getting out information prior to the vote. And we certainly would want to inform the community. And I think that when the community gets informed, then it could make an informed decision about full-day kindergarten. And we believe that the community should be offered the opportunity to make this decision, and that's all we're asking for, is to provide the community the opportunity to make a decision about full-day kindergarten. And I would hope that the Budget Committee would fully support that. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of recommending Article 2 for kindergarten, please signify by saying aye.
Aye. I'll say aye for the process.
Okay.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? All right, 6-0-0. And, usually somebody asks the question, can the members of the Budget Committee explain why they voted the way they did? So you can certainly clear up.
Yep.
You can also speak as a citizen and deliberative and.
I'm
outweigh your
saying, I'm voting
feelings.
in favor of the process.
Thank you for your support. It means a lot. I'm not saying that sarcastically or facetiously. I know how you feel. I get it. I do. But it means a lot that, that to have that support on the ballot. It makes a difference to the voters.
All right, Article 3, shall the Litchfield School District vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $93,313 to be added to the operating budget for the purpose of funding salary and benefits for a full-time special services coordinator position to support the Special Services Director and Special Services Department. This is a 10-cent estimated tax impact. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve as written, Article 3.
Second?
It's been made and second. Any further discussion?
So we had this on last year. Didn't do too well. So why
Still
would-
need it.
But we've expanded the number of positions in that department. That we made part-time people full-time. We hired, and there was a position in the budget as opposed to a warrant article. So we've given, there's now a full-time assistant principal that was supposed to be.
That wasn't in that
helpful in the-
department.
No, it was the help, one of the rationales behind the full-time assistant principal, which some of us argued should be cut based on enrollment, was that it was to help alleviate a lot of the meetings and the paperwork and the other stuff. So I see that we've added additional manpower in that department. I'm curious as to why we still feel this position is needed.
I think the answer is the same as it was last year, and it revolves around the number of very, very complicated exceptionalities that we're seeing in the elementary school. It revolves around the number of meetings that we have to have, the amount of time that people have to spend in IEPs. And yes, thank you to the community for providing us with the full-time assistant principal at Griffin. However, it still doesn't take away from the need for a full-time person to be focusing on kids who have exceptionalities in our pre-K through 8th grade program. We really do need additional help there. We have a single director for the entire district. We do not have building-based directors, which most districts this size will have. And I believe that we need that additional SPED position in order to facilitate getting all of our IEP work, all of our other work done in an appropriate way.
So when we say exceptionalities, does that include primarily SPED, or would that also incorporate the other exceptionalities of the
I'd like
gifted
to
and
look in
talented?
this case as exceptionalities which are falling within the range of IEPs. And so I think that is a much more appropriate word to use for these children, because they do have exceptionalities. They're just exceptionalities in a particular challenging direction, and there are exceptionalities in a very, very, let's say, positive directions that would not be included in this, but they are exceptionalities.
Well, I'm not saying they're not, I'm just saying that there's also exceptionalities, some people consider gifted and talented to be exceptionalities, so would this person provide support in that area also? No.
Say that again?
So would this person be providing support in that area as well?
No, they would not.
That would fall under the full-time curriculum director that the voters approved
Curriculum
last year.
director and other people that work with those children. We are truly, and I sincerely say this to you, public schools today are being overwhelmed by children who have the kinds of challenges we have never seen before. We're the last institution that deals with this. Hospitalization is not an option. Psychiatric care is 72 hours and you're back on the street for the most part. Third-party billing is very limited. So public schools are getting overwhelmed. You can talk to any superintendent or any SPED director with children who have significant disabilities that we have not seen in this proportionality prior. We just met with two lawyers this morning to talk about how things are changing in special ed, and one of the things that the attorneys were mentioning to us is that now apparently we have to hold student records for certain kids until they're age 60. And one of the arguments around that is that it may be that as children get older and age out into their 40s, 50s, and 60s, they want to go back to what happened to them where they were in public schools, what kind of services did they receive, were they fully, how can I say, I can't say cured, were they fully treated as best we could? And I think that what you're seeing, that law is in there because of the increasing number of children that we're seeing in our public schools that are going to be with us until they're 21, and that will be citizens in our communities until they're 60, 70, 80 years old. So I'm saying that The game in special education, it used to be it was an educational response to specific needs. It's a biological response, there's social responses, there are so many responses that we're dealing with, and many of these children are challenging, and we have to have people that can really, really make sure that we provide the correct resources to them. So I would ask you to seriously consider that. I really do think it's something that's needed. I think it wasn't passed last year, but I thought it received a certain degree of support, certainly from this body. It received support, and I thought it received a certain degree of support from the community. And again, we're asking that you allow the process to occur where the district can make a statement about a need that we think we have, that we said last year we needed. We haven't changed our opinion. We'd ask for your support that the voters make a decision.
It was close. It was 605 yes, 638 no. So 33 votes.
So the delta there is 17 votes.
Right.
It went the other way.
Right. For me, I also agree that we did add some positions at the last election, the full-time curriculum director, the assistant principal. I don't think, which would help. So I don't think the need for this has gone away, but for me, I think this year, the priority needs to be on kindergarten. And I think that this is something where we've added positions that I think we can wait another year and bring it in next year. I think if we wanted something which has got a big dollar price tag on it, we need to make decisions.
I would say personally, I think that the Budget Committee has made it, at least since I've been here, pretty well known that if you want something like this, make it a warrant article, and I think you've done that. And I think there's a chance it won't pass again because people will see the price tag of kindergarten, and that's going to be the district's, I guess, responsibility to figure out what to do with that. But I thought it was needed last year, and I feel like it's needed this year as well.
A position like this tends to let the teachers focus on the children that don't need the additional assistance. It's a net benefit.
Is this doesn't impact the teachers. This is more at a higher level, right? Keeping a track of their cases.
It does impact the teachers in terms of the type of IEP that you write. You're making mandates on teachers in classrooms about how they're going to be teaching these children. Now, many of these children we're talking about are mainstream to some extent, but a great deal of their education is with specialized services. But it will impact teaching and teachers in the classroom to some extent, yes.
But I mean, this is not a position that's going to be working with teachers. This is going to be working with the other
This is a person that will be working with developing the IEPs, analyzing the students' needs, and oversighting to make sure that the IEPs are being complied with, the needs are being met. So is it going to be someone that is going to be directly impacting classrooms on a day-to-day basis? Probably not. Is it someone that will be determining the kind of lesson plans and the kind of teaching that are going on by what you write in the IEP? Yes. Is it the kind of person that will be doing diagnostic information on kids to make sure that the information that we're using is accurate? Yes. It is an administrative position, absolutely. However, it will be determining, as every principal in our building does, determining the kinds of classrooms that we actually have in the system. So it is an administrative position, absolutely. But it does impact the culture and the actual pedagogical practices going on in the classroom.
Okay, thank you.
And this would be district-wide? Serves district-wide, not a particular school?
Please excuse me?
This position would serve district-wide
It
and
is
not a particular
up through
school?
the 8th grade. It is not in the high school. It is from kindergarten through 8th grade. This is where we have the major need for this particular service. And obviously, if we have that, then the current special ed administrator would be able to focus more on high school and other needs as perceived. That's why we're saying what we need is to have someone to take over the elementary and middle school components so that the special ed director can then focus on perhaps the high school in a more focused way. I'm sorry for using the same word, it's not appropriate. I do understand the chair's concerns, and I do understand that we are asking for kindergarten. And again, thank you very much for allowing the process to go forward. However, I still think that this is a very important item to keep on the agenda, and we don't know what's going to happen over the next year or two. I would just ask that where the vote was only 7 votes away, if we had lost by 150 votes, I'd say, okay, we lost. But we didn't. We lost in a very close vote. And I would ask that the voters have at least one more bite of the apple to let us know what they perceive. And let me be very candid, the voters may not give us kindergarten. If they don't, they may say that you can't have this position because we almost gave it to you last year, and we believe in it, and we want to give it to you this year. I hope that we get kindergarten. It is my #1 priority. I think it'll have a tremendous impact, but we have to go to the voters and ask.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of recommending Article 3 signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Abstained. All right, 6-0. Article 4, shall the Litchfield School District vote to raise and appropriate up to $50,000 to be added to the Building Maintenance Capital Reserve Fund established in 2004, and authorize the use of that amount from the June 30 unreserved fund balance available for transfer on July 1 of this year, and to designate the school board as agents to expend. This is a special warrant article. Tax impact 0.
What's the current balance?
There was 50 that went in this year, so I think it's around 155, I believe, with the balance that went in.
So what would the rationale be to bringing it to 200,000?
Yeah, let's start with the motion.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve Article 4.
Second.
All right, so what would be the rationale to bring it to 200,000?
Seeing some of the items that are on that capital planning list that we've gone through at some committee meetings. There are
Right.
going to be some things that are going to have to be addressed at the building level, and I don't know that,
So
just
you
never
would-
know what's going to happen.
So you would plan to use that to start picking away at that list, or would we be seeing a bond vote next year for a, like, just?
Yeah, I don't think that we're far enough into that discussion to determine that. I wouldn't be able to answer that now. We got to get through this year's votes before.
I'm going to jump in, the fool jump in, and the wise not tread, I guess. I do know that the Capital Planning Committee has done some very good work, and I do know that, if I'm correct, and you've sat in it, I haven't, that there are many items that were removed from the potential bond, and the larger items were kept in the bond, the more critical items were kept in the bond, which means there are many items that are over here in kind of never land. Our operational budget, it's tough to go from year to year and jump. We brought you in an operational budget that was up 30%. For the next 3 years, you would have questions legitimately about why we were up 30%. So to me, this $200,000 is going to be used both as an emergency fund, if we get a roof or a boiler or something go, but also to take some of the items that have been removed from bond consideration that are high priority items and get them. That's how I see it, and that's why I think we came to you and asked for an additional $50,000 so that we can still hold $100,000 over here
Right.
for real critical things and have some money to deal with the non-bonded items in the capital maintenance area. I hope that explains the question.
The only thing I would say is I get it now, sitting in this chair. When I was a voter with less knowledge and experience, this just confuses me. So I totally understand it. I just, when you look at kindergarten's our main priority, and then I really believe in the special ed position, and then there's this, and I know it's just taking money from here to here now. Just, I don't know that the average voter gets that. Just,
Tax
maybe
impact
some-
is 0.
Right. It's still a tax impact, though. It's just money that's not being used to offset the future rate. So it's no tax increase, but it's not a decrease. So there is a tax impact.
Jen, I'm saying I'm not smarter than your average person, so.
But what I'm seeing, and this is why I'm actually going to vote in favor of this one, is the building and grounds is up less than $80,000, and of that, 150, almost 160 is associated with kindergarten. So to me, I see that the building and grounds budget hasn't really gone up, and I've seen that list, some of them
Yeah.
is. So when, as wonderful, it's Dave, is his name?
Dave, yeah.
As wonderful as he is, like, oh, I can get that done, like, you need some resources to actually get it done. So I'm pleased to hear that some of that money would be used to start at least chipping away at some of that stuff. So for me, this is, I've seen the total of what the big chunk is. I'd like to start picking away at it as quickly as possible.
We have old schools that are aging every year. We do have some potential major repairs. We hope we can plan for them, but you can't really plan for disaster. So I see this as a rainy day fund that helps prepare in case of a disaster, but also plan for some of those items. You put a little bit in the savings account. When it gets up there, you can take care of a big problem. So and the fact that it's a zero, tax impact every year, if we can put a little bit away, that up, I think it's a good thing.
So I'll make a motion to recommend Article 4.
It's already.
Already been
Oh, is it
done.
already done? All right, now-
If there's no further discussion, all those in favor of recommending Article 4 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? 600. All right, that brings us through the warrant articles. Any last items for school district? All right, public input? Anybody? No? All right. That's it. So we will meet on January 4th. Keep an eye open for information that comes over the next 2 weeks. Everybody have a great Christmas, great New Year's, be safe.
So we're not meeting on the 28th.
We are not meeting on the 28th. We are meeting January 4th instead.
Okay.
Superintendent?
As this is, I realize we're meeting again a couple of times, but it can get pretty hectic. I just want to express my sincere appreciation to the Budget Committee over the last 3 years. I really have been impressed by your consideration and debates. I'm not always in agreement with you, but I do appreciate your deliberations, your debates, and your focus on what's best for our community. So thank you very much, and I'll see you for a couple more times. And I don't want to necessarily, at the end of it all, but I do appreciate it. I don't want to get cute about it. I really do appreciate it. Thank you very much for all your hard work.
Thank you. All right, is there a motion to adjourn?
Made.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.